Hello and welcome. I'm Carolyn Grimminger with the Public Affairs Forum of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Austin. Our program's mission is to nourish the mind and spirit and serve social justice. Our forums occur on most Sundays at noon and are free and open to the public. We urge you to attend. Our church is located at 4700 Grover Avenue in Austin, Texas. For more information about our public affairs forums and to see prior forums, you can go to our church website at www.austinuu.org. Today's speaker is Roberto Palomares, and the topic of his presentation is Learn to Love the Pain. Roberto is an explorer, a filmmaker, and a speaker. He is a UT Austin alumni. He immigrated from Mexico. He is currently a producer and filmmaker of a project called Pedal South, a team of 4 UT alumni storytellers that just got back from a 2-year journey cycling from Alaska to Argentina. He will discuss their journey and cultures across the Americas, a story of perseverance, teamwork, leadership, and a belief in a higher purpose. So let's welcome Roberto Palomares.
Thank you. Is there any way that I can move this a little bit? This is kind of uncomfortable. Can we move the podium a little bit? Sure. Just push it or what? There's some cables in there. Okay, then that's fine. Hi, how are you guys doing? Thanks so much for being here. I really appreciate that. My name is Ricardo and I'm an explorer. And today I'm going to talk about my journey, but also I'm going to talk about my life in general. And the whole purpose of today is I want to share my dream and everything that I've done to get there. And some of the things that I learned along the way in hopes that you can apply it to your life and your dreams and every day. So I want to make it really just informal. If you have any questions along the way, maybe just please ask. It's all good. And I'm going to start. So today, the first thing that I want to, the first concept that I want to talk about is that I believe that all of us are leaders. And I believe that we lead at home, at work, and our relationships, and our friendships, or any other area. And if you don't think that you're a leader in any of those areas, or if you don't lead, you don't have a leadership role, you lead in your life on a daily basis with your thoughts and with your words and with your actions. And those thoughts, words, and actions affects pretty much everything that you do on a daily basis. So I'm going to... Cool. So we're leaders. Anyhow. So I just came back from a 2-year expedition. In June 11, 2014, my friends and I flew to Alaska to where the world starts. And our goal was to cycle from Alaska to Argentina over the course of 21 months. And because we love the idea of capturing, we love the idea of knowing what is out there. And our goal was to give a perspective of what is the Americas today. You know, we were 2 filmmakers, we were 1 photographer and 1 journalist. I'm a filmmaker myself. And so we flew there with nothing more but let's cycle the earth, let's cycle the Americas and see what we can capture along the way. That's me when I was a kid. And since I was a kid, my goal has been to explore. There's really not other reason but that I'm really, really curious. I am extremely curious what is out there, and I'm always been excited about learning other cultures and understanding other cultures, because I believe that the more you understand other cultures, the more you understand yourself, and when you do that, it creates more compassion and community. So I did that, and because of that, I left my home when I was in Mexico. I grew up in Mexico, and I left my home, my family, and everything that I knew back there to immigrate to the United States. Was 12 years ago. And I went to photography school in Mexico, and I thought that I was going to use photography as a tool so I can travel around the world. I started photography in Mexico. I immigrated to the United States by myself, and then I moved to UT Austin, to come to film school, because I thought that instead of photography, I want to make films. I wanted to make a more dynamic storytelling. And now the first day of UT, I was terrified because UT is a massive campus. And when I grew up, I had 2 major injuries that kind of affected everything in my life. I had a really bad car accident, and I had a really bad groin injury. Until this day, I have to think about every single time that I walk. I have to think about every single step, and I get too tired if I walk too long. And I can't stand for too long. I just get really tired. So the whole idea of like walking across UT campus was ridiculous to me. I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I was not terrified about the classes. I was not worried about getting in or accepted. I was just worried that I didn't think I was going to be able to walk across campus. So what I do is, I spend some like months, like I got accepted and then I had a year till I started classes. And what I do, I spend months just kind of like feeling bad about myself. Because if my goal was to travel around the world, if my goal was to like graduate from UT, I thought that my starting point, like not being able to walk, was really stupid. You know, like I thought that I should be able to go ahead. Like if I was in point A and I wanted to go to point B, I thought that I needed to be able, like way ahead in the path for my goals, and spend months just telling myself how dumb it is that my only goal was just walk. Until I kind of like accepted where I was, and then I bought this vest where I could put up to 40-pound weights. And I would do like squats every single day, and I would go running in this vest. And I did that for like 8 months, every single day, just so I could walk. And I graduate, and I start classes, and I can walk, and I'm so excited. I was so excited, not for the classes, just because I could walk. And what I realized that time was that it is so important to have a really clear idea of our goal. But I think more important than that, or if as important as that, is like the acceptance of where is your starting point. Because a lot of times we feel sorry about ourselves, or we should be ahead of it. Like if you want to run a marathon and you want to run 26 miles, and you can run only 1 mile today, but you keep telling yourself that you should be able to run 2 miles, then all your energy and your time goes in feeling bad about yourself, when instead of accepting that it's okay. Like at some point you're going to like run 26 miles, but today you can only walk 1, and that's okay. There's always a starting point, and if anything, you're going to be more proud of yourself when you get to 26 miles. Yeah, so I go to UT and I get accepted, and I do really good, and I get a scholarship, so I go to school for free, which is awesome. And just before I finish, there's a girl come to my class and says, "Hey, I'm a part of an organization that takes students around the world, taking photos and videos to share stories of other nonprofits." And I was like mind blown, because it was literally my dream come true into like a program. Right away I sign in and I get accepted, but I then realized that the program is in the summer. And so I was planning to graduate in the summer, so I needed to figure out a way that I was gonna like be able to graduate and be able to be a part of the program. And I do this like really, really intricate plan. And what I come up with is like I have to take 21 hours the last semester, so I don't have to take summer classes. And it takes 21 hours, but because I'm going to take so many hours, I'm not going to be able to work. And so because I'm not going to be able to work, I'm not going to make money, and I'm going to go broke. And because I'm going to go broke, I'm going to go homeless. So then I sit down and say, okay, so are you willing to go broke and homeless to like go travel around the world? I'm like, yeah. Like no question about it. Sure, let's do it. So I focus. I stay every single like 16-hour days for the next 6 months. I just do like schoolwork nonstop. And I even start having this crazy idea of diets. I only eat vegetables, like raw vegetables, for months. So if I thought it was going to help me focus, which it did, and I never did it again, but I thought it was really cool. And I kept doing it, and finally I graduate and I get to travel. And what I do is I go to Mexico and China to document, to help Livestrong with a program they had back in the day. And so what they did, the goal of the program was to try to erase stigma that cancer had in those countries. Like stigmas like cancer is a punishment from God, cancer does not have a cure, cancer is contagious. And in Mexico and in China, those are really, really like common stigmas. It's really mind-blowing. And so what we do is we go to Mexico, the campaign had already finished, and we go to document what was the response of the campaign. And then we go to China because they wanted to take that campaign and to China, so we document what is the stigmas that they have to focus. And it's all about honor in China. Like it's really so shameful to have cancer. And so what happens in China is that a lot of people don't even tell their family members that they have cancer because they're too ashamed. And a lot of people die of cancer, and and the family not knowing what was the reason of that until they die. It's really crazy. So I go and it's fascinating. Like this is like my dream come true. I only did it for like 2 months, but I'm traveling around the world doing what I love, like helping people, sharing stories. And I come back, and I'm so proud of, like, it's kind of like a little glimpse of what is my life going to be in the future. And what I learned about that is that I think most of the time we spend a lot of time thinking about like the goal or what we want to accomplish without knowing the sacrifices. And not knowing the sacrifices and not accepting the consequences beforehand is massive, I believe. Because what happens is that, like, you want to go to point B, but if you go in point A, you want to go to point B, and then in the middle there's going to be a lot of obstacles. We spend most of our time and energy hesitating when that obstacle stems by, because we don't know if we're willing to go through the obstacle. And so every time there's an obstacle, which there's going to be a lot of obstacles, we hesitate because we don't know what we're willing to do about it, or we accept the consequences. And that was what's so powerful to me, because I knew I was going to go broke. I knew I was going to go homeless. But before I even started, I accepted that. I accepted the consequences. So when it happened, first of all, it wasn't such a big deal because I knew it was going to happen. And third, when the big obstacles came, I knew how much I was willing to do about it. And it was just, there was no hesitation, there was no doubt, it was just only moving forward. And that was really powerful. Until this day, what I do is I think about that. Every time I'm going to go do a crazy thing, because I always do crazy stuff, I think beforehand, like, what are you willing to do about it? Like, what is like the worst case scenario, or at least like backtrack, like what is my goal and what is all the things that I need to do to get to my goal? What are the consequences that are related to those steps? And then are you willing to do that? And if the answer is no, it's okay, because at the end of the day, it's not about like necessarily a goal. At the end of the day, it's about knowing yourself, what do you want and what do you do, what are you willing to do about it. So if the answer is no, that's perfect, because you just like save yourself like a 2-year misery trip. Or if the answer is yes, then you know that that's going to happen. So like I said, I graduate and I do the program, and it's incredible. And then I come back, and then I'm broke and homeless. But on top of that, because I didn't take care of myself for so long, my gallbladder gives out, so I have to have gallbladder surgery. And then because of the whole like accidents that I had, and I grew up really poor in Mexico, so we didn't have money for like food sometimes, or for like utilities, so I couldn't go to the doctors. So those injuries affected me over time, and then I started having like pinched nerves on my back. So then I have a pinched nerve. So I'm broke, homeless. I'm like recuperating for a gallbladder surgery, and I can barely walk. And I definitely think that it's a time to take a break. Like, I really need to take a break and just focus on myself for a little bit and focus on my health. And what I think is that, okay, so you're going to take a break and you're going to go somewhere else. You just go somewhere else where you're not around anyone that you know, so you can focus on healing physically, mentally, and spiritually. And I start thinking, oh, I'm going to go to Canada. It's like, no, not Canada. I'm going to go to South America because I miss Latin culture. But then I remember of a book that I read years ago about a pilgrimage called Camino de Santiago. I guess everybody knows the pilgrimage. Okay, so it's a pilgrimage in Spain that what you do is pretty much you walk from border to sea the entire country of Spain. And I decided that I was going to do that. And I don't know why I decided that that was the way that I was going to heal, but that's what I did. And I don't know why I thought that I was going to be able to do it if I could barely walk that day, but I did. So what I do is I sold everything that I had, which was just like my car at the time and a motorcycle. I sold those. I gave away all my clothes, and I fly to Spain, to Madrid. And I take a train to Madrid, to Pamplona, and then I take a cab across the border to France in a little town called St. John's. And that's where the pilgrimage starts. And so the first day, I get to the town where we're going to start the pilgrimage. There's a shelter for pilgrims. I put everything in the floor. I put everything in the backpack that I'm going to take in the pilgrimage, and I put it in, and it's around 40 pounds. And it's like, perfect. This is the same vest that I used to train in. And then I look at the schedule, and I just remind myself that I have to walk 17 miles for the next 40 days straight. And that was day one. I had to walk 17 miles across the Pyrenees in the first day carrying a 40-pound backpack, and I could barely walk a couple of like weeks before that. And the thing is, like, you have to walk 17 miles every single day for the next 40 days. So I wake up and I start walking. And as soon as I start walking, I realize definitely I'm not ready for this stuff. I didn't even train and I could barely walk. And as soon as I start walking, I start feeling a lot of pressure in my knees. And I keep walking, and more pressure, more pressure. At the end of the day, I finish the day, 17 miles. I go to sleep exhausted. I wake up and I can barely open my eyes because I'm so tired. And second day, I give a step and more pressure. And that pressure keeps building and building and building. And then half day into it is pain. It's a lot of pain. And I keep wondering how in the hell I'm gonna walk 17 miles for the next 7 days. There's no way I can finish this pilgrimage. And I keep walking. There's more pain and more pain and more pain and more pain. And I finish the day. I go to sleep exhausted, wake up, and the same. Third day is the same thing. First step is painful. And I keep walking, and it gets to a point where it's like really extreme pain and sharp. And at that point, I know that I'm not going to finish the pilgrimage, and that I just hope that I can finish the day. I get to the shelter. I settle in, and there's a guy comes in like, "Hey, I've been seeing you struggling like the entire couple of days. Like I have these pills that are like really powerful. It's gonna help you out." And I take the pill, and it was like 1,000 milligrams of like ibuprofen, which I've never seen a 1,000 milligram pill of anything. They sell that in Europe, thank God. and so then another guy comes and say, "Hey, like I've seen you struggle. I brought you a bag of ice," and I put the ice. He leaves, another guy comes like, "Hey, I have this like really good cream. You should put it on." Like I put it in. So I put like some cream, I put the ice, I put a pill, and then a lady comes and says, "Hey, do you believe that I can heal you with my hands?" Like, sure. So she kneels down and starts like hovering her hands on top of my knees, praying something. I don't know what it is, but at the end of the day, like 7 different people gave me 7 different remedies, and I go to sleep feeling way better, at least like emotionally, because that was so beautiful. And I tell myself, okay, don't like, just take 1 day off, and if the next day you can't continue, then just call it off. I go to sleep, I wake up, and there's no pain in my knees. And I'm like, whoa. So I walk a little bit, there's no pain, there's pressure, no pain, it's good. And I do a squat, and there's no pain. And then I tell myself, okay, so you're going to do this. You're going to keep walking today. You're not going to take a break. But what you're going to do is you're going to focus on yourself. Don't focus on the pilgrim ahead of you, which is way faster than you or slower than you or next to you. You're going to focus on yourself, on your path, and just take it one step at a time. And when you can't take it anymore, when it's like too painful, just take a break, sit down, and do it again. Back up, keep walking until you can't take it anymore, stick back down, and keep doing this over time. So I start walking. A couple of hours, and it gets really painful, and I sit down. Half an hour later, I get back up, and I do it again. So I do this over time, and suddenly I've walked 14 miles that day at a really slow pace. It's really, really slow pace. And then I look up, and there's a massive mountain in front of me, this huge mountain, and I forgot to look at the schedule that at the end of the day, there was a massive mountain that I needed to hike. So like at that point, I'm like, I'm already here. Like, whatever. And so I keep walking, I look down, and I just one step at a time. And it keeps getting steeper and steeper and steeper, and it gets more painful, and then I sit down, take a break, and I do it again. It's only 2 hours later, I'm on top of the mountain, and I can't believe it because I made it, what about that, like 15 miles, hike a mountain, and I'm still there. And I look at the distance, and there's the town where I'm supposed to get that night. And it's maybe another couple of miles. So I tell myself, like, you can do this. Like, just keep doing it. And I put the backpack again, and I start going down. But as soon as I give the first step going down, I realize that it's going to be way harder on my knees than going up. And the first step is so painful. And I keep going, and it's more painful. And I keep going, and it's more pain. And like 10 steps into it, it's like as sharp as the last day. And then 20 steps into it, it's just like way more pain that I've never felt. And I start bawling, and I start crying so much. And not because of the pain, just because I'm so tired of feeling weak, and I'm so tired of feeling broken, and I'm so tired of constantly dealing with this that can't handle like my dreams. And I keep crying and I keep crying, crying and crying. And then what I do in those situations is that I have this really weird thing that I do to keep me like pump so I can accomplish really intense stuff. And then I close my eyes and I imagine that I'm a lion. I close my eyes and I imagine that I'm a lion and that I'm in control, that I'm powerful. And then within me, within my core, there's this massive, massive energy that keeps building and building and building and building and gets to a point that I can't control this force, that is just like unstoppable. And the only way that I know how to release that is if I roar. And it works. Totally works. You should guys do it. And I keep crying, but I start telling myself that I'm powerful, that I'm strong, that I'm strong, that I'm strong. And I do one step, and I'm strong, and it's more pain, but I'm strong. More pain, I'm strong. And I keep doing this, and suddenly I get to the bottom of the mountain, and an hour later I finish the day and another 17 miles. For the next 40 days, I walked 17 miles every single day. And before I knew it, I had walked from border to sea the entire country of Spain. That's like the coast of Spain. They called that the lighthouse of the end of the world, because back in the day they thought that was the end of the world. And so I walked 40 days, 17 miles a day, when like a month, a couple of weeks before that, I didn't think I was going to be able to walk at all. So the one thing that is really powerful that I learned from there is that you should focus on yourself, you should focus on your path, you should focus on your goal, and take it one step at a time. I know for myself that most of the time I focus on someone else's goals or someone else's path. It's so easy to focus on someone else's like life and what are they doing, what if they're ahead of you, if they're behind you, if they're next to you and you're like in competition with them. The reality is that there's no one exactly like you. And there's nothing better that you could do for yourself and for your goals, and you focus on yourself and your path and your goal and take it in one step at a time. And if you focus on taking one step at a time and do it as much as you can, as long as you can, and take a break when you need to and do it back again, you can walk way beyond what you thought it was possible. Because I've done it, and I know for sure. So I finished a pilgrimage, and I'm not ready to go back home. Like, I'm someone that needs a lot of time off and a lot of space, and I didn't feel like I was ready to go back home and get back to like reality and my friendships and my family and girlfriends or whatever. Girlfriend. And so what I said is, like, I called my mom and tell my mom, you're not going to hear from me for a while because I'm going to go live in the mountains of Wales in this cabin for a couple months because I want to be away from everyone. I don't want to be a friend. I don't want to be a son. I don't want to be a boyfriend. I don't want to be a photographer. I don't want to be anything but myself for a little bit. And my mom was way over her head. It's like I have like way too new agey, like new way. But I was telling her, like, how am I supposed to perform as all those roles in my life if I don't take care of myself first, if I don't know who I am, if I don't really get to understand what I really want. So I spent a couple months in this cabin in the middle of nowhere in Wales. What I do is I spend time like meditating. I go on walks. I spend a lot of time meditating, praying. I read a lot. I worked out. And I just focus on healing emotionally and spiritually and mentally and physically. And it is so powerful because the main thing that I've learned was that if I was going to perform as all those roles in my life, I needed to love myself first. And not only love myself first, but I needed to love myself for who I was. And I felt like for the last 10 years before that, I was never really content of who I was. And so I was trying to fulfill certain roles that were not my roles. And I realized that the most powerful thing that I could do is just love myself for who I was, and that's it. And that just being myself was enough to be loved by myself and by others. And if you do that, like, other people will love you because of that. and you will receive more love from yourself. You will give more love from that place to other people, and those people are going to reciprocate in the same way. Love yourself for who you are, and that is extremely powerful. I think that's the one thing that I've learned in the last 15, 20 years that I embarked on this crazy adventure to follow my dreams. That changed everything. That really changed my present and affected my future. I come back and I get invited to a cycling trip. And that's my team right there. And I get invited to the cycling trip, and we prepare for 2 years before the trip. It took a lot of preparation, a lot of effort for sure. And 6 months before we have to leave, just 6 months before we leave, I get another pinched nerve on my back. But that pinched nerve is way worse than any of the other ones before, and it's so bad that I can't even walk for weeks, and I can't even sleep because of the pain for weeks. And something breaks, like mentally and like spiritually, because in my head and in my heart I've done anything and everything that I needed to do to get better, right? Like I sold my things and I gave away my clothes and I flew to Spain and I walked through Spain and then I hid myself in the mountains of Wales and trained as much as I could, and I came back. It was not enough, but not only that, I was even worse than when I was started. So that broke me mentally and physically. That completely destroyed me. I was broken down. And for the next months, I kept telling myself that I was broken, that I was weak, that there's no way I can continue. And I've never felt like this before. Like in the past, whenever I had a massive thing that I needed to accomplish, at least I knew that I had the faith or energy or vision or stamina, whatever, to move forward. But this time, it was none of that. There was no energy, there was no motivation, there was nothing to get me out of this funk. And what I do is, like, I got so bad that I called my mom, and so she comes over, from Mexico, comes live with me for a while, and she just takes care of me as much as she can, just like feeds me and like just being there for support. And she's like, Ricardo, I've never seen you like this before. I was like, no, I've never been like this before. I've never felt like I'm just broken. Time passes by. I get a little bit better physically, but mentally and emotionally, I'm still broken. And that's the worst. Like, there's no way I could get out of it if I was still mentally broken. My mom comes one day and says, hey, Ricardo, I need to tell you something. And she goes, my son is not a coward, and you're not going to tell me that a stupid back pain is going to break you down. And suddenly, like, something snapped. Because at that moment I realized that I was focusing on the negative. I was focusing on being broken and weak and for months and months and months. And that will create more weakness. Like if you focus on negative, it will create more negative. If you focus on being angry, you will be more angry. If you focus on being broken, you will be more broken. If you focus on being strong, you will be more strong. So what I did is, like, I focused on the trip. I focused on, I have to do this. And not for me, because of the people that I knew we were going to affect over time. I knew that our trip was going to impact people. We were going to inspire people along the way with our journey, but also with the stories we were going to tell, and we're creating a documentary about it. So I keep focusing on that for months, and I keep getting better, and I keep getting better, and my family is now doubting that I'm going to be able to do the trip because, Ricardo, your back is too weak. There's no way you're going to be able to do it. And I kind of like not pay attention to them, which I do a lot. and I keep doing it, and 6 months later, I'm ready to travel. And it's the day that we left to Alaska, and I'm ready. So one of the main things that you could do is that you need to focus on your strengths, not on your weaknesses. And you need to focus on the outcome. What I mean is that there is really powerful when you focus on what you want, but also if you focus on feeling, how would you feel if you already accomplished that? Like, visualization is one of the most powerful tools that I do in my life. Instead of focusing on the obstacles, focus on the outcome. You focus on your strengths, not on your weaknesses. That's a game changer for sure. I fly to Alaska, and that's in the middle of nowhere, Alaska. Is there any way you can turn off a little bit of the lights? So you can, there's a couple of really good photos coming in. So we fly to Alaska. And there's Alaska in the middle of nowhere in the summer. And we arrive in the top of the continent, right, in the top of the Americas. And from the top of the Americas to the first town, which is Fairbanks, it's around 2 weeks cycling. And we go through the Dalton Highway. In the Dalton Highway, there's nothing but gravel and mud. There's no people, no houses, no buildings, anything. So you have to prepare food worth of 2 weeks worth of food. And we had stacks and stacks of ramen and to do PB&J sandwiches. 4 days into the trip, our gas runs out of, like our stove runs out of gas. So we were stuck in the middle of nowhere, Alaska, eating nothing but dry ramen and 2 PB&J sandwiches a day, cycling 8 hours. And it is in the summer, so it doesn't get dark. So it's 24 hours of daylight. And it's just weeks and weeks that looks just like outside right now. And so you cycle 10 hours, and it looks the same. You go to sleep, wake up, looks the same. Cycle 10 hours, looks the same. And then you're eating dry ramen and just making sure that you're not going to be eaten by a bear. And it gets really, it's really hard. So we go through a couple of days of this, and then suddenly there's a sign that says Happy Valley Camp. And there's a building. We rush into the building. We open the door. There's a kitchen. And there's a lady. And it's like, could you please feed us? Could you please give us some food? And there's this lady. That's Marcy. And Marcy's beautiful. Marcy's so loving and giving. And she takes care of us. She gives us food. She gives us something to drink. But then I realized, she tells her life story, which is fascinating. And there was something that really stood out to me about her was that she seemed really happy. She seemed really content. And I know, at least in my life, that I don't know too many people that seem really happy and content with their life today. They seemed really just in the now and content. And so I go to her like, Marcy, I have a really big problem because I'm so ambitious that I always think that happiness is going to be one step ahead. That once I accomplish something, I'm going to be happy. Once I get something, I'm going to be happy. And that has been kind of like my Achilles heel for a really long time. It seems that you know the answer to this. Would you please tell me what it is? And so she tells me, you need to learn to love the pain. You need to learn to love the ugly. You need to learn to love the pain because that is where your love is needed the most. Well, that sounds easy. And so for the next 21 months, every single day that we were hungry, we were cold, we got robbed, I was almost attacked by a bear, every time I almost had a mental breakdown, I was telling myself that I needed to learn to love that. Why? Because my love was needed there. Because from within pain comes growth, from within pain comes compassion, from within pain comes change, from within pain comes self-discovery, and knowing yourself and conquering yourself is the biggest battle you can win in your life. We continue the next 21 months. There's no way I can really explain how hard it was. I felt like I was mentally, physically, and spiritually ripped apart and built back up from all the experience that we had. The time that the bear was eating our food right there, many of those. Or I was in Mexico. We were filming wells off the coast of Mexico. I was in Guatemala. We're on top of the mountains in this little sustainable village called Jovitenango. So what they did is they built this self-sustainable village in the mountains based on The Hobbit, and it was called Jovitenango. And all the little houses were like circular doors and everything. It was really cool. That was the San Blas Islands of the coast of Panama. That's bunk bedding. that's like a shaman. That's in Ecuador. Like this shaman lady was cleaning on our energy, and she said that I had the best energy. She's like, "Oh, you're cool. Thank you." That's in Ecuador. That's swimming with giant turtles in Costa Rica, I think. That's sleeping in the dirt like way too many times. I love the chickens in the background. Like this lady feeding chickens. Let me see that. Oh, that's a water park in the middle of the desert in Peru, and we're riding in the middle of the desert, and there's a water park, and we go inside the water park, and there's no one but like the people that work in the water park, and as soon as you see each other, it's like, you guys wanna get naked and do this? I'm like, yeah. So we had to put extra water in that photo because he was like, that's in Machu Picchu. That's a sandstorm in Peru. That was really hard, for sure. We spent like 4 months in the desert. That will. That's a waterfall in Chile. It was incredible. That's my birthday in Patagonia. So they made me a piñata in the middle of the mountains in Patagonia, hiking a glacier. That's like I had a big beer back then. It's in Chile. It's Patagonia. We got to Argentina finally. That was a beautiful moment. We sat down and we started recording each other, just talking about how we were actually gonna make it, like how incredible it was that we actually gonna finish this. And what happened was that when we crossed to Argentina, which was the last 3-4 weeks of the trip, we kept hearing that there's going to be a massive wind currents, and that the wind was going to be so powerful that it was going to push us off the bike in Patagonia. And so yeah, as soon as we cross across to Argentina, the wind is crazy. But luckily, the first couple of days it was in our back, and we were cycling like 100 miles every 3 hours. We were flying. For us it was a lot because our bicycles were like 140 pounds because of all the like film equipment and everything that we had on it. And so we keep flying, and then a couple of days later the highway starts turning, and then the wind is in our side and it keeps pushing us off the bike, and we have to like cycle like almost in a 45-degree angle so we can stay in the bike. And a day later, like just turns a little bit more and the wind is in front of us. And that day was the windiest day of the season, and it was like 80-mile-per-hour wind against us in Patagonia. And the wind is this massive, massive like force that is just pushing you constantly that you can't move forward. We were cycling, I think, like 5 miles per hour. And it's so loud that your ears hurt. And it's so cold that my skin is burning. And we do this for 5 or 6 hours. And I'm so exhausted I can't even focus my eyes anymore. And the only thing that I know how to what to do is like I start screaming as loud as I can over and over and over again to make me feel better. That doesn't work, and I get really scared because I've never ever experienced anything like this before. I get terrified. And then I start asking God just to stop because I can't take this anymore. I ask, please God, make it stop. Please God, make it stop. Please God, makes it stop. And He doesn't stop, but neither do I. And I keep going. And then I start imagining myself like, you're not there. You're in Hawaii. You're like drinking pina coladas and you're eating like lasagna. You're not there. You're not there. You're not there. You're not there. But then I remember that lady telling me, like, you need to learn to love the pain. And I tell myself, be here, be present, take charge. Because the only way that you can take out of a situation that you're not want to be in is by being present and taking control. You get to decide whether you let pain push you down or push you forward. You get to decide whether pain is going to affect you. The pain is temporary. And you get to decide how to react to it. And once you realize that you take charge, and the pain is no longer taking charge of your life, but you're taking charge of your life. So I really encourage you to try to focus on what is pain in your life today, and what is a way that you can learn from it so you can grow, you can change, and you can adapt, and you can get to know yourself better. We finally get to the destination, and that's like the second place in the world that I've been that it's called the end of the world. It took us almost 2 years to do the entire trip, and I cycled from the top of the world to the bottom of the world a couple years before that, I didn't think I was going to be able to walk across Spain. A couple of years before that, I didn't think I was going to be able to walk across campus, but I did. So I know for a fact that what seems impossible is attainable. And so whenever you're going to go accomplish a goal or whatever is in your, like whatever goal or obstacle, just remember that you need to know what is your goal, but then you need to accept where your starting point. And then you need to be aware of the sacrifices, but accept the consequences. Then you need to focus on yourself, your path, on your goal, and take one step at a time. And then you need to love yourself for who you are. You need to focus on your strength, not your weaknesses. You need to focus on the outcome, not on the obstacles. And you need to learn to love the pain. The power to achieve what seems impossible is within you now. Thank you. No.
Okay, thanks, John. So I have some questions. It's time for question and answer.
Sure.
Start off with my question.
Okay.
I can't wait to see the film. So
Oh, yeah.
When do you think the film will be available, and what kind of places are you going to show it in?
So we partner with Arts and Labors. It's a production company here in town, and we're right now cutting like a sizzle reel, it's called, so we can go sell it to like Nat Geo, Discovery, Netflix. So we're still in the selling part of the project.
Are you going to be at a festival or anything like
No,
that?
we're going to go directly to networks.
Oh, networks.
So what we're going to do is we're going to make probably like a 6 to 10 one-hour episodes for like Netflix or Discovery or something like that.
And y'all just tell me when you've got a question, or I've just
Yeah.
got several.
So it's probably like my hope is that it's in a year from now.
A year. Is
Yeah,
your
we have like 1,600 hours of footage.
Wow.
Yeah, we have plenty of stuff to share.
So I just went on one small trip to Big Bend with 10 people
Yeah.
a few years ago, and it kind of fell apart. So I was wondering, did y'all have personality conflicts on your biking trip? Like, how did you overcome? I'm sure you had to just overcome some obstacles between you interpersonally.
Yeah, sure. So what do you mean by fall apart?
Oh, screaming, yelling, the whole trip broke up. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's within our nature to like kind of like have arguments. Yeah, for sure. We hated each other for a long time. And I mean, we fought like brothers, and we just like hang out like brothers. And I think it was not easy. It was not easy at all. And I was the leader, and it was extremely hard. But we created a dynamic that worked, and I don't think like people outside would look at us and they were like, these guys are crazy and these guys are like too intense and whatever. But at the end of the day, we did a dynamic that worked, that we were able to do something that I don't know anybody that was able to do it. So I think the main thing is that, yeah, it was a lot of struggle, it was a lot of fights, whatever, but it's finding a dynamic that works for you.
So you were the designated leader?
Yeah, well, the main guy that started the trip, he bailed like after 3 months, and so I just took charge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, you need a leader in order to do this kind of stuff, for sure.
We have a question from Becky Halpin.
Becky.
Well, I think this is totally exciting. And I think we're going to have a lot of excitement right here in our own country following the election. So how would you relate your experiences to the political situation here in America? Or would
Sure.
you?
It's funny because, I mean, this is my perspective, right? Take it or leave it. But like my girlfriend was really concerned about it when I was in Mexico when that happened, and I called her and she was like really concerned about like the election and where were the results. And so I told her like, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. And she was like, well, how can you say that? And I was like, well, let me just tell you, for example, like I grew up in Mexico, and when I grew up in Mexico, that was when I was, I guess, like 11, 12 years old. The peso devaluated from one day to the next one. Everybody lost everything. Like from one day, the peso was worth, I think it was 3 pesos for the dollar, and then the next day was like 15 pesos for the dollar. And so everybody just lost a lot of things. Like the president at the time just pretty much ripped up the country in a lot of different ways. And I grew up really poor, and that was one of the main reasons that I struggled a lot growing up. and I know what is to be hungry, and I know what is to be broke and homeless, and I know all the stuff. And at the end of the day, all that stuff didn't matter, because I took charge and I took control of my life, and I took control of what what could I control. Yeah, like I can't deny that there's certain things that you can't avoid, right? There's certain things or situations that we may be in the country, but I do know that most of it's under your control. And I know for experience that I took myself out of poverty, and then I took myself out of like different things just by focusing on my goals and my strengths, and seeing opportunities where they seemed that they were not. That was the best thing that I can say about that.
So it seems like you accessed a lot of inner strength, a lot of inner power, but then I heard you talking about God too, so I'm not asking you to label yourself, but I was thinking about that during your presentation.
Yeah, no, for sure my main source of my strength is God. I don't really pursue any religion at all, but I definitely feel that since I was a kid, I'm trying to honor God with my thoughts, my words, and my actions. And I want to honor Him by doing what I feel like He wants from me, which is exploit my creativity, exploit my curiosity in a way that is going to impact people in a positive way. So I love exploring, and there's nothing else that makes sense to me than to be out there and do all this crazy stuff. And I have no reason about it. I'm just the only time that I can make sense of like who I am. And so I found a way to impact people in a positive way through my adventures and get people inspired, but also through storytelling. And I believe, like the best way to impact people in a positive way is through storytelling. Like that's the Bible pretty much, right? And so sharing stories, sharing little bits of wisdom, sharing perspectives, sharing knowledge, it's extremely powerful. It changes lives. And so I found a way to do what I love and impact people along the way while serving God.
All right, we still have about 10 minutes left. Okay, I have a question from Luther Elmore.
Yes, you mentioned the lady that told you to love the pain and go with that. In this episodic adventure that you had, did you meet those who challenged you and made your journey more difficult, as opposed to the lady who gave you the reinforcement and encouraged you? So if you met some along the way, such as that made the endeavor more difficult, then how did you deal with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's from like almost getting attacked by a bear to like getting robbed a couple of times. It's like at knife point, at gunpoint, and there's like a lot of, maybe not necessarily like people, but like a lot of situations where hunger, we're sleeping in nowhere. I mean, there's definitely like obstacles constantly, and definitely people. But I think it's the same thing. I think just, for example, like the robbery, right? There's someone here and like put a knife into my throat, and a bunch of other guys, whatever, they took like up to $10,000 of equipment. And I knew what was going to happen. Like before I left the trip, it was like, you're going to travel for 2 years in some of the most dangerous areas in the world in a bicycle, carrying $50,000 of equipment in a bicycle. Like, you're going to get robbed. I knew that for sure. So the only thing that I did was like, I'm just going to get an insurance, I'm going to prepare everything, and I'm going to know in my head what I'm going to do when that happens. And so that happened. It's like, give me your camera. Like, just take the camera. It's all good. They took it. I dealt with insurance for a week or so, and a week later I had another camera, and I was continuing the journey. On the other hand, my family, I talked to them, and they were like, oh my gosh, this is worth it, and like, you should stop the trip. And like, my girlfriend, like, please come back home, and like, which I get it, right? But in my head was like, are you kidding me? Like 2 years cycling the world, carrying $50,000 equipment, this is a surprise to you? Like, this is crazy. So that's, for example, one example. Like, it's all about how you react to it, and it, to me, it's about, yes, taking charge and do what you can do. At the same time, I do know what I'm willing not to do. And so if it was a little bit worse than that, like, for example, there's another guy that he got shot at. They didn't land it, but he got shot at, right, while he was getting robbed. As a leader, like, we all talk about it, and we decided that we wanted to continue, that he was okay, that we were fine. Like, if he had shot and he was wounded, then maybe I say, let's stop. But I mean, you just have to. It's a lot about adapting. It's adapting and changing and flowing, and there's not right answer. You just deal with it. And I guess all comes from knowing yourself, knowing what are you willing to do, right? And knowing what are you willing and how much you can do. Like if in my head I didn't think I was going to be able to lead these guys for another year, I would have said like, peace out. But I did. Like, it was extremely hard, the hardest thing I've ever done. But I knew kind of like it was in me, so I just went with it. Does that answer your question? Cool.
So something tells me you have another trip planned. I don't know if you
Yeah,
told me that, or
for sure,
what's the next trip?
Yeah, so my goal is to finish the movie in this year, and then next year, in a year from now, I'm going to go sail around the world. Yeah, go even crazier, I guess. And yeah, in the meantime, I'm doing a lot of like coaching, mentoring, like leaders, how to like lead in any situation, and I do like keynotes like this, and I'm writing a book because it turns out that like leading under extreme conditions in a long time, it does create certain knowledge and wisdom that is really applicable to a lot of people. So that's what I'm focusing on right now.
So, did you say you were writing a book?
Yeah, I'm writing a book about like the same thing, pretty
You
much.
have written it or are writing it?
I'm writing it right now.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be watching for it. What's the name of your book going to be?
It's going to be Learn to Love the Pain.
Learning to Love the Pain.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to finish it in a month or so, I think. That's my goal.
We have a question from Richard Halpin.
Thank you. Do you have a website or some other?
Yeah, I do have a website. You can check it right here.
Okay, good.
So that's my personal website right there, and that is the information of the trip.
We're a little bit in the back here, and the light's poor. Can you read it to us?
Yeah, sure. My website is Ricardo, like my first name, Ricardo P-A-L, RicardoPal.com. And the website of the project that what I did is called Pedal, like pedaling, pedalsouth.org. And if you want, you can later. I can just write it down whenever you're done.
We have another question from Russell Askew.
Hi. My brother has an ulcer, and I tell him to just focus all of his attention on the ulcer and feel as much pain as there is there. Just try to feel the pain.
Yeah.
So, that's it.
Cool. I think, for example, okay, so I did this type of meditation in Argentina. When we finished the trip, everybody kind of like needed a break, and I spent a month in Argentina, and I spent 10 days out of that month meditating in this retreat. And we were meditating like 10-hour days for 10 days straight. And the technique that we were doing, it was just focusing on the feeling of your body. So it's like, what do you feel here? Like, do you feel hot? Do you feel cold? Do you feel pressure, pain, whatever? And you do that over through your body. That's what you do all day for 10 hours. You just focus on how are you feeling, how are you feeling. And there's a lot of pain, right? Because you're sitting down and there's a lot of pain to it. And what I do know is that when I focus on the areas of pain, you get to realize that how much you're willing to take, and also you start kind of like dissecting the pain, I guess, and you say, okay, so maybe it's not necessarily pain, but it's the really extreme like pressure or it's tingling, and that definitely helped me kind of like endure and manage the pain. That's the only thing that my experience about that.
So another theme I picked up on in your presentation was a lot of time with people and then retreats, and then back out to people and retreats. Can you speak more to that?
Yeah, I think to me it's essential to have time of extreme work and time for rest, and I think it's as important the time of rest as the time of extreme work, because during those time of retreats is where you get to process what you learn and how you change, how you can apply it, or how that affected in your life. Now I'm going to try to make, and it's all like a trial and error. Like right now, I'm not gonna go on like a 2-year expedition. I'm gonna go like 6 months and come back and retreat, and it's necessary. To me, it's super necessary. It's just balance. You know, it's like cycles, and there's no way I can sustain something like that forever, right? And at the same time, I mean, it all comes down to knowing your needs, and I have a really big need to do stupid, crazy stuff, but I have a really big need to be home and have a dog and be settled, and so it's just fulfilling both needs, right? And so that's cycles.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes left. If there aren't any other questions, maybe you could like to make some closing remarks.
That lady right there.
Hi, my name is Lynn, and I'd love to hear just a little bit more about your meditation practices. If you could share some more about anything that you think have been particularly helpful.
Yeah, so the meditation that I did in Argentina, it's called Vipassana, and it's really well known all over the world, and I mean, I recommend it because I've done a bunch of different techniques, and that's the one that is the simplest and most effective that I've ever done by far. Because it was, what they say is that there's a bunch of different meditation techniques, and a lot of meditation techniques focus on quieting the mind, but this Vipassana technique focuses on kind of like cleansing the mind. So they believe that if you clean the mind, if you cleanse the mind from all that, whatever we have, then like quieting the mind will come naturally. And that was my experience for sure. It was really intense, but definitely felt how after the 10-day it was just so much quieter naturally, not me trying to make it quieter. So yeah, Vipassana sounds incredible for sure.
We have a request that you spell the word Vipassana.
Vipassana, I think is V as in Victor, I-P-A-S-S-A-N-A, Vipassana. Yeah.
They have Vipassana retreats in Kaufman, Texas.
Yeah, everywhere,
I know
like
that.
in Dallas and like,
yeah,
it's really well known.
In prisons and all kinds of
Yeah,
things.
if you Google Vipassana or something that sounds like Vipassana meditation, I'm pretty sure you can.
Okay, so that ends our time. I'm sure if you want to hang out for a little bit
Yeah,
and
I'll
answer
hang
more
out.
questions afterward, let's give them a round of applause.
I'm clapping. Yeah.